So next week, we're going to ask everybody to join us and wear your pink ribbon.
Yes.
And this year's message is Together We Rise. Our featured artist was chosen this week because of her artistic, in-your-face messaging about everyday life. I love this quote from Barbara Kruger. I try to deal with the complexities of life.
That's very interesting, and I'm looking forward to the presentation. Sarah, let's hear your thoughts on Kruger.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Share my screen. A very exciting artist today. So Barbara Kruger was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1945 to a middle-class family. She was accepted to Syracuse University as an undergraduate, where she enrolled in a number of art and design classes. But after only 1 year at Syracuse, Kruger moved to New York City to take more advanced art and design classes at Parsons School of Design. While enrolled at Parsons, she had instructors that included the American photographer Diane Arbus and the graphic designer Marvin Israel. Israel in particular had a dramatic influence on Kruger, encouraging her to prepare a professional portfolio when she was starting to become disinterested with art school. After leaving Parsons, Kruger began working at Condé Nast Publications, working on magazines such as Mademoiselle, House and Gardens, and Aperture. And at 22 years old, this is remarkable, she became the lead designer for Mademoiselle after only a year of working at the company.
Wow.
Despite her early success in editorial work, though, she felt compelled to pursue a career in art and had her first big break in 1973 when her work was selected for the Whitney Biennale exhibit in New York. And it wasn't until the 1980s, though, that she found her signature style, which was these found photographs with witty and assertive text that challenges the viewer and kind of falls under the category of word art and appropriation art. You Are Not Yourself depicts a woman examining herself in a mirror that has presumably been struck and shattered by a bullet. The text, You Are Not Yourself, appears on the photograph surrounding the image of the woman. The work was included in the exhibition Barbara Kruger, Belief and Doubt at the Hirshhorn Museum in Washington, D.C., which has been on view since 2012. And as is the case with much of Kruger's art, You Are Not Yourself is often interpreted with a feminist analysis. Critics have discussed the gendered implications of the image, noting that the woman's shattered reflection suggests the existence of women in society is inherently fragmented. The text in this work seems as though it states, you are yourself, until one sees the smaller not in the middle. And Kruger did this to symbolize how it may not be obvious how manipulative media can be within one's life. And this kind of critiques how TV shows, movies, magazines, and social media all influence the way consumers, particularly women, dress, act, and try to look. On the right is the piece, Your Body is a Battleground, which was produced by Kruger for the Women's March on Washington in 1989. And the woman's face is split in positive and negative exposures and obscured by this text, which kind of marks a stark divide. And the image is simultaneously art and protest. And though its origin is tied to a specific moment, the power of the work lies in the timelessness of its declaration. I Shop, Therefore I Am is one of Kruger's more well-known pieces. Kruger associates her work with the modern kind of consumerism-driven society. The phrase was borrowed from the French philosopher René Descartes, I think, therefore I am. And she tries to imply that the public is no longer defined by what it thinks, but rather by what they own. And so her anti-consumerist art criticizes members of society who feel as though it's necessary to replace their own self-worth with materialistic items. According to Kruger, modern society is filled with people whose focus is on what they have rather than who they are. Face It is a prime example of the bold graphic aesthetic and witty humor that reigned supreme in her career. On the jacket's tag, where one would normally expect instructions for garment care, she's instead inserted the words, "This luxurious garment won't make you rich or beautiful." So through this kind of subversive comment, she challenges our consumer culture and the way in which society has come to build this identity around commodities.
Mm-hmm.
We Don't Need Another Hero comments on the roles of power of women and men in society. And this is an old vintage ad and was probably selling some sort of vitamins or health drink to make boys grow big and strong. And the ad implies that physical strength equals power and success, but Kruger flips that on its head with her use of the text laid over the image, and she kind of challenges gender stereotypes and gender expectations with this piece. Who Owns What is a large photographic screen print on vinyl measuring nearly 3 square meters. And it depicts a hand holding a small box between the thumb and the forefinger against the plain black background. And the provocative question, who owns what, is superimposed in these capital white letters on the red ground along the box's side. And the box resembles the shape and size of a cigarette packet, kind of, with the text covering the space where the brand name would be. And as in many of her works, the large size of the vinyl and the graphic treatment of the text deliberately mimic the language of advertising. Given Kruger's commitment to feminism, we can assume the question who owns what is tied to the artist's views on gender inequality in terms of corporate, material, and intellectual ownership. So a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. So this is a billboard-sized work addressing the persuasive power of images in our society. And it depicts a man cutting a strip of movie film, a gesture emblematic of the construction and manipulation of images, which Kruger feels has often been controlled by men. The photograph is of a film editor. It's particularly poignant as it also evokes the notion of covert control through censorship, which was a reoccurring subject for her and her peers since the early 1980s. And while the phrase, a picture is worth more than 1,000 words, may seem to favor images over the written word, the meaning of this work is conveyed not by the image alone, but ironically through the union of the picture and the words. Look and Listen very directly asks the viewers to look and listen to women. In opposition to the objectification of women throughout the history of art and film, Kruger puts the focus on women in this piece, allocating them an equal role in contemporary society to that of men and freeing them from the so-called male gaze. So Forever is a site-specific exhibit that was done at the Spruth Magers in Berlin. And the installation occupies, as you can see, all 4 walls and the floor and the ceiling, or actually not the ceiling, excuse me, of the Berlin Gallery's main exhibition space. And you can see how large it is by comparison with the person standing in the room. You can barely see them, especially since they're also dressed in black and white. But the boldly designed textual statements on the nature of truth, power, belief, and doubt embody this kind of distinctive visual language that Kruger has developed over the course of her career. And I also, after my presentation, I'll link to a video of the gallery website that shows the piece more in depth and kind of what it would be like to walk through the room. We Are Not What We Seem refers to both the photo itself and the broader social context. No image exists that can be interpreted without ambiguity. And I feel like this is especially, especially relevant today with social media and all the images that have been, altered and can be misconstrued. So with this piece, is this woman holding a magnifying glass in her hand? Is she taking a contact lens out of her eye? Nothing is really what it seems at first sight. And illusion and reality are really intertwined and merge into one another. And so the deceptive language of the mass media and the veracity of photography are really being questioned here. And then the picture below, Talk is Cheap is part of a series of collages that Kruger did in black and white without the iconic red that she uses in her other pieces. These pictures are on the smaller side compared to some of her billboard-sized collages. And these pieces are concise and to the point, but really require the viewer to think just beyond the image and kind of at the larger meaning. Don't Shoot deals with the invasive power of photography. So though the camera in this piece is more old-fashioned, it was made in 2013, so a time when we all have cameras attached to our phones. The black and white image of the man holding this miniature camera in his hands, kind of sporting this menacing smile, is presumably frozen in the moment just before he presses the shutter button. And abruptly and all at once, the viewer becomes the target of the pervasive nature of the man's gaze. You are a very special person, calls to question the idea of power and the identity of those who dictate justice. As seen in this piece, the bejeweled crown symbolizes authority, while the words speak of kind of this subordinate mockery. And on the other side, we have Not Stupid Enough, which is a commentary on women in the media and the types of women that our society values and for what reasons. The picture is of Marilyn Monroe, the famous actress and sex symbol, and it comments on the way that society finds her most appealing when she's dumb and attractive. And this is actually part of a larger series of other pictures of famous people. For example, there's one of Malcolm X with the text, "Not angry enough." And it just kind of speaks to how society likes to put people in boxes. So here are some clothing collaborations that Kruger's done. In 1984, she created a t-shirt design that featured a blown up image of the woman's face with the text running across the figure's eyes and mouth reading, "I can't look at you and breathe at the same time." And the shirt was produced as a collaborative project with fashion designer Willie Smith for his Willie Wear Productions label. And then also you can see in 2017, Kruger collaborated with clothing brand Volcom for her contribution to the Performa 17 Biennale in New York. And she created a pop-up shop in the city's Soho neighborhood where t-shirts, beanies, sweatshirts, and skateboards were all for sale. And finally, I will end on this exhibit. This was located at the Hirshhorn Museum in DC, and it was part of an initiative to bring new sites within and around the building. It fills the lower level lobby and extends to the newly relocated bookstore. And this exhibit covers a total of 6,700 square feet. So the entire space, the walls, floor, the escalator sides, as you could see, they're all wrapped in this text printed vinyl, which really immerses the visitors in this spectacular hall of voices where words either crafted by the artist or borrowed from the popular lexicon address conflicting perceptions of democracy, power, and belief. And at a moment when ideological certitude and the purity seem especially valued, Kruger says she's really interested in introducing doubt. So speaking on the name of the exhibition. And so large areas of the installation are devoted to these open-ended questions, as you can see, like who is silent, who speaks, who is beyond the law, and who is free to choose. So these are just really interesting things to think about as well in our own personal beliefs and identities. But overall, Barbara Kruger's work has an integral place in the history of feminist, postmodern, and conceptual art, and her aesthetic is among the most recognizable among contemporary artists. Thank you.
Wow, Sarah, that's incredible. So many powerful messages here. So which one was your favorite?
I like Your Body as a Battleground.
Yeah. The one I liked was Talk is Cheap. How about you, Maureen?
Oh, I liked the 2012 Belief and Doubt.
Yeah, that was good
really
too. They're all phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. Well, again, thank you, Sarah, and we're looking forward to seeing you back next week.
Thanks, everyone. And I'll link to that video for the gallery exhibit in the chat.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.